when your lobster pod arrives, it will be all wrapped up to protect it during transit. The first thing to do is to get your lobster pod into position, so ideally in a flat bit of floor. If not, hopefully you've already had that conversation with us and we've spoken about shims and various techniques for sorting that out. But for the purposes of this, we'll assume a flat floor. The lobster pod will have parts packed away for transit. So the media in here will be in bags in this section. So you'll want to take it out of the bags and return it to that section of the filter. The socks in here will have a bag of carbon inside of it, which will need to be taken out and added to the sock. We have other videos about setting up various parts of the filter if that would be helpful. The skimmer top should be wrapped up and will also be in this section of the filter, so you need to lift that out and sit it in position. There will also be some hose for your chiller, again in this section of the filter. These will need to be fitted to, I just moved these things out of the way, you might be able to see, to the inlet and outlet for the chiller on the end of the lobster pod. Again, we'll cover that in another video, but you can cut the hose to length and run it to your chiller and back again. The chiller will be on a separate pallet. For a system this size, it will be one of our large chillers, and we will supply a 16 amp plug that will need to be wired onto the chiller. We would usually recommend a rotary switch as well for this, keep it nice and safe with a waterproof socket. The next thing before you start thinking about adding water is in this bottom tray of the stack there'll be the small parts and spares for your lobster pod. So in there you'll find your manual, a water test kit including dip strips, spare air diffusers. There'll also be hose clips, a reef rackometer and spare O-rings for the ultraviolet sterilizer. There'll also be a bottle of stability, we'll come back to that in a moment. Once the lobster pod is into position, just double check that all of the boxes are sitting nicely in the pod, that the manifolds are in the upright position and that the siphon brake covers are open. Once you've had a quick check that the ultraviolet sterilizer is still in place, the air pump and the switch block have had no transit damage, you should be ready then to add your water. So we would recommend filling up the sump up to the level of the sock shelf. This will mean that once you start off the lobster pod and the water is pumped up and through the boxes, there should still then be enough water in the sump to cover the backs of the pumps. This is important because you don't want your pumps to run dry. You can add some more water. At this point, that will be the minimum. Once the water is running through all of the stacks, you can use these valves at the top to help balance the flow. So you want to look at the flow rates coming out of the bottom stack, and if these are all equal, then you're good to go. If one of them looks like the flow is more increased than the others, you can use these valves to regulate that. You want to double check that the ultraviolet sterilizer bypass is in the correct operating position. So we want these two valves open and this one closed so the water can go through the UV sterilizer and back out. Once everything's running nicely, you'll want to think about adding your stability. This will start the maturation process for your filter. And once you add this, you want to switch the UV sterilizer off for about a week. This is just to give the good bacteria a chance to reproduce in the system. You can then think about adding some lobster. We would recommend starting very gradually, as this will give the best results for filter maturation. No more, for a system this size, which is 300 kilos, no more than 20 lobsters to begin with. Once you add those, lobsters will be producing waste, which the filter bacteria will start to consume and use up. You do need some ammonia produced to allow the bacteria to multiply, but starting gradually is the best way to get that done. With your chiller, you want to set the temperature to about 12 degrees. For normal operating, anywhere between 8 and 12 will be fine, but the filter will mature much better at 12 degrees than 8 degrees. Once the system is up and running, you can cool it down a little bit if you want to, but again, you don't necessarily need to. Other than that, I think you're good to go. You can always get in touch with us if you have any questions especially during the setup phase, but at any point you can give us a call or drop us an email if you've got any questions.